All right. So, our pal Sean, he's your pal. I like Sean. I've never talked to Sean. I don't know if I could call him a pal.
Sean Cermick from Reserved Investments
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Guy who puts out a lot of, we've talked about him many times before. We've gone over a lot of his videos. He goes over a lot of like the financial aspects of collecting.
He's an antiques and collectibles expert going back to like the 80s.
And
he was very critical of WADA. He worked with me and Carl together in that video that came out a couple years ago.
So he put out a video called Collecting in the Sad Decline of Physical Media. First they came for retail, now for physical. It's a pretty good video. I have some disagreements with him, but basically he talks about collecting. He talks about, this is a lot of stuff that I think people covered when Toys R Us first closed down, because he does bring that up. How without a physical store, you not only lose the memories, and he says, and this I'll disagree with that a little bit later. He says collectibles are based on nostalgia. Mm-hmm. But even if I disagree with that, you lose the memories. And more importantly, he asks 3 questions. He's like, can collecting based on nostalgia survive without physical stores to kind of give you that nostalgia? Mm-hmm. He says that he believes that, going into those toy stores as you were younger, the seeing those rows of toys, it's kind of like that's what gave birth to collectorism. Collecting. We have these nostalgic memories from youth of toys and video games and things, and we didn't always get what we want, and now we're old enough to get it.
That's absolutely a lot of what collecting is.
So I feel like that's more what collecting is. I feel like it's less nostalgia. So let me just finish this. And then he says, toy collectors, he's like, aren't we really just kind of recreating a toy store at home? And if there's no toy store to recreate in a kid's mind, what are they going for? So I agree with most of this.
There's a few different thoughts. We should go through one at a time.
Okay, hit me.
Okay, well, first of all, you said about collectors buying things that they didn't have or couldn't have, or buying it again, things they had as a child. Absolutely. That's a lot of it.
Yes, I think that's more than nostalgia to me. It's I finally get to play the shit that I wanted to play.
Or I'm discovering more of what I couldn't access as a child because of money or time or just not being aware. Like if I had known some of these NES games existed when I was a kid, I would have wanted to play them. I would have. Mm-hmm. And you had no idea that there was this many games. Yeah. You had just no clue.
So I won't deny that there is, I've had the occasional warm, happy thought, of youth playing some of this stuff. But for me, it was more calculated. It was like, I'm 19, because when I started buying NES games, I was like 16. I wasn't old enough for a lot of nostalgia. It was just, I have a job, I have money, these games are cheap now, I can buy the games I want to play.
Sure. It wasn't like nostalgia yet. You still just liked the NES. And it was like, okay, I want to play some of these games.
Yes.
I just couldn't.
So I don't think he's wrong, but I think that's specific about certain types of collectibles, and it's to people. He says he divides it into 2 ways, and I kind of like what he's going here with this, but antiques are historical.
Correct.
And
you weren't around you're not nostalgic for a dollar bill from 1770.
Right. So antiques are historical, collectibles are nostalgic. I don't think it's that cut and dry. Because I think you can collect many things without it being on nostalgia, based on nostalgia, but that does not mean I'm collecting antiques either.
Yes, but I think what he's saying is just by and large, the average collector is buying things they know and are used to. Yes, I can collect things I didn't have as a kid and grew up with. I'm just less likely to.
I agree. I just don't think it's as cut and dry. I think when it comes to by and large, when it comes to retro video game collectors, or toy collectors, I would say those are 2 markets where it's very much nostalgia based.
Yeah.
You could even say that to a degree about comics. However, the amount of comics collectors I've met who didn't even read comics until they were in their 20s or 30s, that again, you would definitely consider comics collecting or collectibles, but that's not based on nostalgia. That's someone just got into this hobby.
Sure.
So that's it. It's a little bit of nitpicking with words, but I do think I don't think it's that cut and dry.
Yeah, but for the most part, like the reason I love ColecoVision and don't really care about the 5200 is that I play ColecoVision at my cousin's shore house, like
Sure.
a lot.
And like I said, I'm not immune
saying-
to it. The 5200 for me is a nostalgia thing.
Yeah,
It is.
ColecoVision is
Absolutely.
nostalgia, and yes, it's technologically superior to most of those Atari consoles. But like, I played a lot of those games that I still know the carnival dings and sounds in my head of playing that. So like, that's why I'm drawn to that because of that.
The 5200 does immediately remind me of my grandparents' living room. I mean, that's without a doubt.
You get those memories. I know it's like it's set up like it was a corner by the fireplace. It was set up like that's where they set up. It was on a brick thing. Like I can visually see where it's set up, and where the game case was, the leather game case my cousin had for that. It's embedded in my memory. So what was I saying? I think that's mostly, like I said, it's not a real for 100%. But yeah, most of the things I've collected, I have a connection to the past in some way, most. And if I don't have a direct connection to them, I at least have like a bridge to them through everything else. Like obviously I played it. I mean, it's kind of hard with video games. I played most of these consoles when I was a kid in some form or a teenager. But I'm trying to think of a console. Like I wouldn't give a shit about Sega's Saturn games, but it's adjacent to the Genesis and CD, which I am familiar with, and that's why that's cool. So it's hard to. I'm trying to think of something where I'm collecting it and it has no connection to anything else I have any experience with, and it's hard for me to come up with that. There might be something, but it's hard for me to think of that. It just is.
Sure. And like for me, I feel like people hear I collect records and they're like, well, that's a collection based on nostalgia, and it isn't. It's just I like the format.
Form factor.
I just like the format. I like the form factor.
But to me, that's almost not, you're collecting music more.
Sure.
And you just like the form factor. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Like,
I get it.
Frank collects CDs, but he's really buying the music.
Yeah, you're buying
play.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, because I'm not just vinyl only. I'm very close to vinyl only in terms of physical, but I do have tapes. I do have CDs. It's just a matter of my record player is always right there to turn on, so it's easier.
Sure. Okay. What was the second point after that?
My second point?
You had a second point. You had points you're dividing up. That was the first one.
So he brings up the Sonic. This is kind of a two thing. I'll finish what I'm going to say, and then you can finish. So Sonic the Hedgehog. He tells the story about going to get Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Okay.
And I loved those experiences. Like those days where you go out with your parents and they got you something, and then you maybe went and ate somewhere. Like good memories, and that's the story he tells about going to pick up Sonic 2 and then going to go to eat. And he talks about, but if they don't, modern day, if there's no store to go pick up that game, will they, is there, the children are not going to have that experience. That, on one hand, I think that sucks. On the other hand, if they have no context for it, they're not really missing out on anything. And old experiences are always replaced by new experiences. I'm not saying that there is good, and I don't know what a comparable experience would be, but I think that's less. I think that's less of an issue. I mean,
it depends on how you look at it. Less of an issue for what they don't want to collect anymore, or they want to collect specific things. Because what Toys R Us did, and what KB did and Kitty City did with that M82, is that it showed you the products more in action, right? It showed you hey, like remember like they had like. One of my earliest TurboGrafx memories was going to Toys R Us and seeing the video display, which you probably had in your. I don't know if you had.
We did. I played Airzonk on it, and the up button didn't work.
Even before that, back in '89, 90. I mean, this is a TurboGrafx 16, and it had the video that you can see on YouTube. There's the intro to it, and it ran through like the 15-minute video of all the games. That's how I knew about TurboGrafx 16. Like that's how I discovered it.
Yeah, but people get that today with videos. YouTube.
But being in the environment of like, okay, this is telling me about it. There's the console right there. It's physically in front of me, and there's the games. I just think, Ducky, there's a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? It's more visceral, the experience of being embedded in it.
Between you and me being born when we were, yes, but I don't think it's affecting anything for today's modern kids.
Well, okay, let's put it this way. If a kid grows up and he gets individual toys from Amazon once in a while, right? So he's still getting the toys, right? I think you're not indoctrinated the same way as we were. We were indoctrinated with splash pages of Sears catalog showing all the G.I. Joe toys, all the He-Man toys around a Castle Grayskull. We were indoctrinated with going to Toys R Us, seeing all of the the VidPro cards, all the games laid out. We saw that display of the Nintendo next to Rob. I saw that in Toys R Us. Remember, they had a display aisle of all the consoles under glass, physically the consoles at Toys R Us. You can see it. You can almost touch it. That's what the kids won't get. Like that.
Right, but
I'm not saying it's good or bad. They're not getting that.
I think it's I mean, honestly, a lot of that, and I mean, I'm happy to see it go, frankly. The indoctrination, the constant advertisement. I mean, I hate to boil it down to this cynical thing that every non-collector, I mean, I collect, but we feel so strongly about so much of this stuff in the 80s specifically because it was advertised to us. I mean, it's commercial.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think losing that is awful.
I'm just saying, but it's not whether or not it's good or bad. He's saying without that, there's less a nostalgic kick to go back and collect it. I totally agree with that.
He is saying that, and I think just on the paper, yes, absolutely. Without that, there is going to be less of a nostalgic kick to go back and collect. But he's just, think I
would have searched out that M82? I searched for an M82 for years because of my memory of playing that at Kitty City. I searched for years to get that.
I just don't. With how people are starting to get better about treating the history of things, games, toys, books, and things like that, I don't know that if we see a downturn in people collecting, that it's a bad thing. We may.
Okay, you're saying that you won't think it's a bad thing, but it's going to happen. Like I think that's what Sean's saying. It's bound to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen. Yeah,
because the downturn. We didn't even talk about the downturn in retail. Real quick about the shelves and things looking like.
I wanted to say one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to finish it off. The last thing he said, though, I like videos like this where I find the person giving the information likable, and then I like 50% of it, and I disagree with 50% because it gives me something to talk about, but I don't get mad.
It doesn't sound like you agree with even 50% of it.
I do.
You do.
I didn't agree with the definitions. I do agree that that collecting is going to die out for these reasons.
But that's the main thesis.
I also agree with the last thing here. He closes it. This is before Christmas, saying that if you're buying a present, especially for like a niece or a nephew or something, and they want a video game, buy them the physical game. If you can, take them out to go shopping for a game or something like that. And I agree with that because I have memories of my aunt taking me shopping on my birthday.
It's social.
It's social, and this has nothing to do with collecting or anything like that. It's just it's something that people need to be told every once in a while. When you're buying something like that for a kid, the gift card isn't. They're not going to remember that.
Or digital. I gave you a digital game in 2024. It's like, what?
They're not going to remember that. It's going to be way more special to them if you buy the physical object.
It's not visceral. It's not. They can touch it. They can
or take them.
See it. Yeah.
Give them a memory. And for me, this isn't about preserving collecting or anything like that. It's just, you're absolutely right. Well, digital goods are great for me. They are. I do a lot of digital only, and I know people will give me shit. But in the long run, I know the risks I'm taking. I have very little space. I'm okay with digital. But if you're giving a gift, when you're giving it to someone else, the physical object means more. Yes. It's something that they can hold on to. I'm so happy that I have I sold off my Nintendo collection, but I still have the 35 games that were given to me by my parents.
Sure.
And, my grandparents' as gifts. That means something to me.
Sure.
In terms of a gift, physical is always the way to go.
Yes. It wasn't his thesis, but it's a corollary. The thesis is that you're going to have less collectors because of retail dying. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, that is true.
But the corollary 100%. Is that you have less socialization overall and less social experiences for children.
That's fair.
And that's, to me, more dangerous. Obviously, we're in the collector's world, but the fact that you even have one less thing now where kids can go to a Toys R Us or a KB and run amok in a store, look at all these cool toys together with other children, run through the aisles, because a massive... Well, KBs were small, but how massive!
Yeah, Toys R Us aisles. You can drive
your parents would lose you. Your parents would go be looking at like the sports section. My father would be looking at whatever hockey sticks or whatever, and I'd be 7 aisles down looking at GI Joes. You know what I mean? Like that losing that, like, doesn't bring a tear to my eye, but that's like, I don't want to have to describe that to the next generation how awesome that was, and that you'll never be able to experience that. That's not a thing where, oh, it's gonna be better, kids don't have that with technology. No, it's not.
The thing is, though, and this is where you can tell we're getting
Time does
older.
march on, though. Yeah.
You don't want to explain it, but the kid doesn't want to hear it, and the kid's not going to care.
They might. It might be so alien to them. Trust me, it's alien now talking to someone born 20 years ago about almost like programming a VCR and having rotary telephones.
Right.
We are that crossover generation, and we saw the old world and the new world.
Oh, yeah.
That basically come. That's what's special about our sort of like semi-generation.
No, I do consider that's
I'm
one of those
honored.
weird things
I'm
that
sort of honored.
Yeah, I consider myself very, very lucky to have been born perfectly, that I know what the pre and post of the computer age looks like.
Yes. And the information age. So, but losing the socialization to me, because kids, you know, I think by and large, they're doing less of that anyway. But like that's sad to me. It's sad that I can't, like, with other random kids running through Toys R Us, like look at the same toys.
I mean, it sucks that we can't do it that way, but we just got to look forward and find new experiences to make sure we give the kids.
Yes, I do think there is a chance that we could remember because Toys R Us didn't exactly go out of business because it was doing that poorly. That was, you know, it was a whole other thing with being leveraged with, you know, with fucking asshole venture capitalism involved. So there is a chance we can see Toys R Us return in some form with stores. I do think building it up again is possible.
I mean,
I absolutely do. I think there is room to have a toy store chain.
No, when we talked about Toys R Us going out of business, we always said there is definitely room for a physical toy store.
Yes.
It's probably never going to be on that scale or size again.
Yeah, you can go back into the malls or smaller shops and maybe have a big store here and there. Because remember, there was a Toys R Us in like every big town. Had like a Toys R Us.
Sometimes two. I think we had one, and then we had one maybe 10 minutes further away from that one in Buffalo.
And then KB, there was a KB in every mall in America. Remember, at one point there was way more KBs than Toys R Us. KB used to be the largest retailer of toys in the U.S. till about, I think Toys R Us overtook them by the early to mid '80s. They overtook them on there. But anyway, shelves and displays and how that. I guess almost again, indoctrination is a good word, to collecting. I agree with that for some collectors, that displaying is a big part of it. Like how it appears to visually, maybe not to match necessarily how it appeared directly in the store. That's almost closer to what sealed game collectors do.
I was going to say that to me, I do feel like that's more of a thing that happens with toy collectors and less of a thing that happens with video game collectors.
Sure.
And with video game collecting, that's not the default by any stretch of the imagination. With toy collecting, I don't know that I'd say it's the default, but I do think a lot of these people are putting them on shelves to look at. It's definitely different to me. You can still look at the figure and appreciate it. I don't think there's a lot of guys ripping them out of the packages to do setups, but there are people who do. And I like seeing that too, people who take the photography and do that as well. I think it's less frowned upon in toys. I frown upon it less in toys because you're not losing as much, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I think when you put things on shelves, I mean, how else are you going to display? How else are you going to collect video games? You put them on shelves. You know.
No, but it's two different things. We're not really recreating a toy store.
It's like a library.
But a lot of it's true. I mean, that's why people say video game library.
Yeah.
Whereas a toy collection is much more likely to be that. I know a lot of the toy collections that I've seen pictures of online, or our friends post videos like Nintendo Dan. There are a lot of spaces where it is toy store-ish.
Oh, my one cousin, one of the trio of rich boys, not rich, they had every game console. Even in like 87, Ian, 86, in the basement, he had a diorama. He had like most of the G.I. Joe toys that came out the first like 2 or 3 years, like when it was super military based. In an awesome diorama. There's the G.I. Joe base. Here's the Cobra vehicles attacking. It looked great. He was probably, at the time, he was probably like 10 years old. And he had a great setup going on for that stuff. So even back then, you wanted to display, you know, toy stuff and have it because you play physically with toys. You don't physically play with video games. You pop them in and get the media off them and interact with them. So it is a different sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Sure. Real quick, we should probably move on, but I did want to say real quick, we kind of missed the other point of the video, though. I mean, the video is called the first they came for retail, now for physical. We talked about the retail. Real quick, he does mention, and it does kind of turn into a video about just the decline of physical retail again. but it is. Where did I put my notes? Fuck, I closed them. I think it's Best Buy is getting rid of DVDs and Blu-rays this year, and there was a Target is getting rid of maybe the same thing.
Yeah, but I think that's a decline in interest, probably partially too. They just realized,
oh, sure,
we're wasting space. No one's buying this anymore.
Absolutely, but it just goes to his point with the collecting that, you know, the less availability of physical media, the less collectors we're going to have in the future.
That's different than retail. We always said that kids growing up are not going to want stuff they're not going to want stuff in the future they didn't grow up with for the most part.
Yeah,
they're not going to like video game collecting 20 years from now. I don't know what it's going to look like.
Right,
I don't know if it's going to be a thing. You know, in terms of a new generation, because like, are you going to have people that are going to collect Switch games, but they got most of them digital? They're going to try to seek out the physical version. Are they going to care about the little chips? Like, are they going to care? Like, I don't know. I don't think there's less things to handle, less tactile. There's no instruction books anymore for the most part. Like, I have no idea. The cases are just little plastic things that look ugly to me. They're not like, I mean, it's not like really nice to look at, or we'll see. But check out Sean's video, Reserved Investments.
Yeah, it's a good video. Thank you for that.
And real quick about publishers don't need retail anymore. They direct market digital. They have for the past 10 years, really, been doing that. More than 10 years, 12 years or so, Nintendo started doing directs. And retailers kept the prices inflated on digital for the most part. This is Josh from Living Run did a tweet thread about this. Not directly connected to, I think, this video. But the reason why we never saw digital games being like, whatever, 20% less than physical, because Best Buy, Target, GameStop would have threw a fucking fit.
Oh, yeah.
They would never have allowed it.
No.
They would have severed all relationship entirely. Because once that would have happened, then once there's people saying, well, why would I pay $60 for this game? I can get it for 40 digitally. I'm saying,
yeah, they wouldn't allow it, but now they're at the point where now it's ingrained. This isn't 15 years ago, and they don't need it anymore.
Which is bad now, because now why would the publishers charge less for digital when they can get away with paying selling at the same price? It's baked in. It's baked into the culture, unfortunately, for the consumer at this point. So that's just a point that I wanted to bring up.